Howdy, travelers. Welcome to episode 4 of the Deep Space Travel Break, your weekly podcast for No Man's Sky news, discussions, and more. I just want to take a minute to thank you so much for your support of my little channel. I can't believe, how many viewers I've had, considering I just got this started. I know I've mostly done speculation so far, but I actually do have big plans for upcoming content that I'm really excited for, but I'm kind of sitting on it until Frontiers is released, because I'm afraid of releasing or spending about 20 hours or so, editing a video and putting it all together, only for it to, immediately become irrelevant as soon as Frontiers is released. So I appreciate your patience. In the meantime, if you want to leave a like or subscribe, that would really help my channel because it's so small right now. It makes a huge difference. So if you have a chance, I would really appreciate it. Additionally, I'm currently looking for possible guests to bring on the podcast. As much as I love to monologue, and I'm sure you love to hear me monologue about No Man's Sky, I honestly believe, actual dialogue and discussions are the best way to enjoy, No Man's Sky content. So hopefully you'll see the fruits of that soon. All right, so what do we have in No Man's Sky news this week? Let's see. I've compiled it all here. I have a whole Google Doc. All right, let's see here. Here we are. Yeah, nothing. Nothing's been announced in about 2 weeks, but that's okay. You know what I mean? As we patiently wait, I'll go ahead and get started with the topic of the week: how you can prepare for the next update, or rather, I guess how I usually prepare for the next update. All right, here we go. So these are tips and reminders that I give myself every summer, but can honestly be applied to pretty much any No Man's Sky update. So the first and most important tip, and this is very important: back up your save files. Honestly, let me say it again. Back up those save files. I'm being serious. Back them up. In the past, new updates would often launch buggy to the point of potentially corrupting saves. People would lose hundreds of hours of progress with no backup, which really sucks. Luckily, Hello Games have gotten much better at publishing more polished updates in the past couple years, but it's still a good habit to get into because you never know if your system's going to crash or get bricked. You never know, so having a backup means peace of mind, especially as an update's about to release. So do yourself a favor and back up those save files. Now, I was thinking about doing a guide on how to back up your save files, but there are so many different systems, right? You might be playing on Xbox One, or Series X, or PS4, or PS5, or PC. Honestly, take 5 minutes, Google it. It's really worth your time, and if you don't do it and something ends up happening, you will have wished you had only spent 5 minutes instead of the several hours it'll take for you to catch up to where you were before. All right, so tip number 2, have some Quicksilver in your wallet. Now you're probably thinking this is just a normal part of the game, right? Getting Quicksilver. How does that help you prep for the next update? Well, if you think back to last year, the Living Ship update, in order to obtain a living ship, you had to complete a quest line. And in order to begin that quest line, you needed a Void Egg. Now, the Void Egg cost 3,200 Quicksilver from the anomaly. Now, yeah, there were ways you could sort of get one for free from another player if they were rich or generous, but you can't count on that necessarily. So if you wanted 3,200 Quicksilver, you get about 250 Quicksilver per daily mission at the Nexus, and about 1,200 Quicksilver for the weekend missions. So you're earning about a maximum of 1,375 Quicksilver a week. So if you had seen the Living Ship update and thought, ooh, I want that, and just bought the game that day, or you're a longtime player who hadn't saved any Quicksilver up, you would have been grinding Quicksilver for over 2 weeks before you had enough to buy a Void Egg yourself. Whereas when I downloaded the update, I already had about 30,000 Quicksilver, right? So I jumped right into that. So, while it's not confirmed that you'll need Quicksilver, honestly, it couldn't hurt to maybe hold off on a couple of purchases at the moment, maybe complete a couple Nexus missions, maybe a weekend mission if we have the time, and just sort of have a little bit in the bank prior to Frontiers. It might make enjoying the new content even easier. In addition, it also gives you a little goal, something to do in the meantime while you're waiting for the update. So to that end, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to also have some of the other currencies on hand. For example, when the Synthesis released, the newly added Starship Outfitting Terminal introduced high-cost upgrade paths that involved millions of units to upgrade, or tens of thousands of nanite clusters, in order to take advantage of it, right? So similar high-cost upgrades were also added with freighter colors. They were also added with the multi-tool upgrade station at the space station. So it might be a good idea to have some extra currency on hand. And by currency, I mean units, nanite clusters, quicksilver, and, in case you forgot, tainted metal. And it might also be a good idea to have a few salvage modules on hand. That would include maybe salvage frigate modules, anything that's really used to progress your character or get upgrades and blueprints. Might not be a bad idea to have some on hand. Hello Games regularly adds new blueprints to the game. Like, it's almost a given we're going to get new blueprints with this update, right? And so looking at the currency required for those blueprints, whether it's salvage modules or nanites, having that ready means you can experience the new content as soon as possible, if that's what you're into. On the flip side, maybe you want to play more of the game when it releases, right? So you don't want to have all that money so that you can grind it with maybe new gameplay loops or new activities that they add. Of course, I'll probably play that stuff anyways, even if I don't need the money. But if you need that motivation, there's no harm with holding off. Honestly, you can play the game however you like. This is just something I suggest for those people who maybe haven't thought about it or would really like to get into the new content as soon as possible. Alright, so tip number 3 is more of something to consider than an actual tip or task. And what I'm suggesting you consider is where you are in the main story. So we really haven't had a significant update to the main story questline since 2019 with Beyond, but that doesn't mean we won't see one this summer. I mean, if anything, they updated it in 2017 and 2019, so it's been another 2 years. Perhaps 2021 is when they make even further changes. So it's totally possible that this update could rearrange the quest or objectives in ways that could either break your progress or require you to repeat things. In the past, this has happened where people were partially done with something and then the objectives changed, so then they kind of had to redo things they'd already done, or they were kind of stuck because they needed something, and now that the quest was changed, that was no longer a part of it, but they still required it in their game. So it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. It's definitely something to consider. If you haven't finished the main tutorial, I would probably suggest at least getting your hyperdrive set up with fuel. If you're really close to the end of the game, it might also be a good idea just to go ahead and finish it, right? So that's completed. Then again, if maybe you don't care about that stuff, or maybe you think it might be cool to see changes in the storyline, then you don't have to worry about this. Again, it's just something to consider. Another thing to consider is that if you have the space, you could also start a new game to experience all of the new features or new storyline. I know a lot of people did that with Beyond. I personally didn't, but I usually do start a new game just to try out the new tutorial so I can learn the new systems. And then I'll go back to my main save. So that's another option you can do. But just be aware of where you are in the story. If there's anything you want to finish before this update, now would be the time. I know before Atlas, or before Next released, I had never tried the multiplayer in Atlas Rises, which was just orbs, right? So the week before Next released, I went ahead and I actually went through a portal and visited civilized space so that I could see another person for the first time and know what that was like before they updated the multiplayer and it completely changed. So if there's something you want to look at or something you want to finish or complete, before it possibly changes, now's the time to do that. For example, you might want to walk around a space station, check out the interior rooms, and get an idea of it in case they're completely changed in this next update. And to that end, actually that leads perfectly into tip number 4. Alright, so this last tip it's purely for fun. It doesn't affect your gameplay at all, but I tend to do this every summer, and sometimes before updates if I think they're going to be significant. And that is, take screenshots. Now, before you roll your eyes, I'm not just talking about like virtual photography, although that's always fun too. I mean, you should take screenshots of your ship, your base, your freighter. Heck, you can even take screenshots of the menus and UI if you like. I've been known to do that before. And you might be wondering, why would I just randomly take screenshots of things I encounter every day in the game? And that's because summer updates often introduce visual overhauls, right? 2017 did, 2018 did, 2019. Yeah, now that I think about it, every summer update has some form of visual overhaul. And that could include, a whole new user interface, new menus, could be new ship models, new planet tech, anything, honestly. Now, if you don't pay attention to the game's previous details, being the game right now, those changes might seem minimal or even inconsequential, which, again, isn't the end of the world. But if you have screenshots of things the night before, let's say if you know when the update is going to release, you can make direct comparisons and better appreciate how things evolved. And that's something I really love to do, is to look at the screenshots and be like, wow, look, they changed, all these fonts, or, oh wow, this thing is more detailed than it was before. It's so much clearer. Things like that, little details you might not notice when you've got like 100 new things to look at. But then if you take a look at your screenshots from before, you'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot that used to look that way. I know it's pretty silly, but I dug through some of my old screenshots, and I couldn't find all of them because I have tens of thousands of screenshots. But you can check these out. So this is a screenshot I took of my ship in Pathfinder, my fighter. And then I also have a screenshot of that same ship in Atlas Rises, right? And so it's really cool to see that progression of not just the graphics, but the ship itself. But then on top of that, I still have that ship in my freighter, actually. So this is what it looks like today, which is pretty cool to see the difference in scale, the difference in detail. It's really cool. And that can also be applied to like the interior, right? The cockpit. You can see how the displays and the holograms have changed over the years. And that's something that you can really only appreciate if you take the time to actually compare screenshots. Another example would be this screenshot of my old homeworld that I found in Atlas Rises, right? It was a little moon. It looked like one of the E3 trailers with the color of the grass and the sky and everything. It was beautiful. And then when next came around, it was regenerated. Still beautiful, but completely different. Later, it was recolored in the Visions update, and I decided for this podcast to go ahead and pay it a visit. And here is what it looks like today, as of 3.5, I forget what the version number is, as of No Man's Sky Prisms, right? So if that's something you're interested in, if you really want to compare, like maybe, your base planet is completely different, maybe your base is buried. Here's an example of a base I had in Pathfinder, and then Atlas Rises, right? It just got completely burnt and buried. That's something that's a lot of fun. Sometimes people use it to complain. I usually just think it's really interesting to look at. It's almost like a time lapse, right? Of when you see like water levels rising or dropping in like aerial photographs. It's cool to see the differences and to just appreciate how much work they put into changing it. But if that's not your speed, again, doesn't affect gameplay. It's just an extra thing I enjoy doing. Alrighty, well, those are my quick tips to prepare for No Man's Sky Frontiers, as well as any update, really. Of course, it also never hurts to brush up on your lore. either in-game or simply, looking it up online. It's also sometimes fun to revisit gameplay mechanics you don't usually engage with. So let's say you haven't, run a freighter since Desolation, a derelict freighter. Maybe give one a shot, right, in case they update it. Visit an archive building, do a Nexus mission, try stuff that you normally wouldn't try. Sometimes it's cool to see that, because then when the update releases and updates those things, you're more aware of, what they've changed. Or there's always a chance it just disappears, right? It's replaced by something else. Kind of like the multiplayer missions you used to be able to engage with on your freighter bridge that eventually got moved to the Nexus, right? But it was something really cool that essentially you had closed lobby multiplayer missions that someone had to be in the system with you. Whereas at the Nexus, anyone could join your session, really. So if you have like a small party of maybe 2 or 3 guys that you just want to play, just the 3 of you, someone might join in that you don't want. And that's a feature that, yes, it was upgraded, but it was also, in a sense, removed. So you never know. It's worth giving things a shot if you have nothing better to do, All right. But I do believe those 4 tips are a good idea, for most players if they're not sure what they should be doing, while you twiddle your thumbs refreshing Twitter. But honestly, what do you do to prepare for updates? Do you have any special rituals or habits that you think might help others? If you do, go ahead and comment below. I read all my comments. I really enjoy seeing what y'all have to say, and I'm pretty sure I missed something, right? There's probably some essential pre-update tip that I've just completely overlooked. But that's what you guys are for, right? So start a discussion in the comments below. Share any tips you might have, and I'll be excited to read them. Before I close this podcast, it's time for our community spotlight. So this week, I noticed on Twitter a user by the handle @USAF1209. They've been hard at work building a replica of the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. And they plan to unveil it live on August 26th at 6:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time, or 11:30 p.m. GMT. And obviously I haven't seen it yet, right? He hasn't revealed it live, but they seem to be doing a lot of work, and I'm pretty sure it'll be worth the wait. They seem very excited. So if you have the time to check that out, I would definitely suggest it. This podcast usually goes live on Thursday morning, so if you're watching this when it releases, it's just a little bit more of a wait, right? Or if you're watching this in the future, hey, you can already check it out. Let me know in the comments below if it was worth it or not. Hopefully it's as cool as I think it'll be, and I'll definitely be checking it out. Okay, well, that's this week's show. It's probably a little bit shorter of an episode than usual. I was really going back and forth between doing speculation, ignoring frontiers, or what I should do. And I kept circling back to tips to prepare for the update. Because I figure even if we got the update really soon, that would be something that people could use or might be helpful to someone. But if we don't get any new news this week, I might go back to speculation next week. Maybe something a little bit more focused. But please let me know what kind of content you're interested in. Now, do you want to hear more speculation? Do you want me to reflect on the game that we have right now? How it's changed over the past 5 years? Deep dive on any sort of topic, any portion of the game? Do you want my opinion on something? Just let me know in the comments below. I really want to make interesting content, and I have a lot of great ideas lined up for post-Frontiers. But in the meantime, your input's always welcome. It really helps me make the show better. I always enjoy reading and engaging with you guys, and I look forward to it. So thanks again for supporting my small podcast. I know we're just getting started, still working on getting a better mic. I appreciate your patience. Like and subscribe if you want to support the channel. Honestly, that's the best way to do it. Again, we're so small that even like a single subscription makes a difference. So if you want to see more, then that's the way to help us. thanks again for your support. Hopefully Frontiers releases soon. Have a good one, and I'll see you later.